told the synchronous or synchronized manufacturing refer to entire manufacturing process working together in case of achieving the goal of any kind of firm or organizations. Then the next point, in case of synchronous manufacturing, is all encompassing manufacturing management philosophy that includes consistent set of principle, procedure, and technology, where every action is evaluated in terms of common goals. So as far as concerned with the synchronous manufacturing, or the interchangeable word that is known as theory of constraint, as you know, this philosophy is initiated by Ilya Goldraff during 1980 or during 1970-80. In that scenario, they are directly focused on optimization of production technology in the form of production scheduling. So why, in case of production scheduling, the thing is that they just includes the set of principles, procedure, technique, which is evaluated in every process in terms of achieving the common goal of organizations. And the common goal of organization is to maximize profit. The next part is that the synchronous manufacturing can produce rapid improvement. So I already discussed this particular term. In case of rapid improvement or continuous improvement, most of the organizations are implementing PDCA cycles. The P for plan, C for act, C for check, and A for act, and D for do. So in case of PDCA cycles, they are implementing for continuous improvement in most, in case of your manufacturing environment, because it provides a identify and focus on common organization goals. So whenever you find any kind of constraint or any kind of constraint from the bottleneck area or the narrow part of any organizations, in that case, you have to just fix that particular constraint for achieving the common goal by implementing principles, procedure, and technology. The next part is that as I told, the synchronous manufacturing system and theory of constraint is very much interchangeable. But the thing is that if you understand the term that is known as theory of constraint, so basically the theory of constraint says that small number of constraints that prevent any management system from achieving more of its goals. So what type of constraint? For example, in case of operational constraint, in the form of machine setup, for example, for movement of material from one place to other place. Next example is your financial constraint. Next example is your, you can say it is behavioral constraint. So these are the things which is directly prevent the management systems for achieving more of its goals. So this is why there is always at least one constraint. The theory of constraint uses what is called focusing process. So in case of theory of constraint, they directly focus, or it's a kind of focusing process to identify that kind of constraint. If you find any kind of constraint in the systems, you just fix that particular constraint as far as concerned with your manufacturing environment, and restructure and address it. So that means whenever you find any kind of difficulties in the form of constraint, in case of your manufacturing activities, you just restructure by applying principle, procedures, and technology to address it. The next part is that if you go to any kind of organizational system or managerial systems, it is look like a chain which is connected through a link. So suppose if you find any kind of constraint, that constraint is known as the weakest links. So that is why in case of Ilya Goldraff had described in his novel named Goal during 1980s, in that novel, he mentioned a chain is no stronger than its weakest links. So that's why whenever you implementing this theory of constraint, you have to take care about your principle, procedure, and technology to identify the different kind of structure, constraint, and restructure the constraint according to its need. The next part is that the theory of constraint work to find the link and lessen its vulnerabilities. So if you find any kind of difficulties, these difficulties directly impact on your manufacturing activities. So that is why the theory of constraint says that the constraint, you have to find the that means weakest link from your managerial system or your organizational system. If you find any kind of difficulty, you directly go for that or it can reduce the chances of that particular constraint. The next is that theory of constraint is applied to process organizations, even if individual teams member, whatever or whoever is risk to successful completion of particular project. In case of manufacturing activities or your production activities, as you know, the most of the manufacturing or production activities is, consist of process and organization, even if it is also includes some small individual teams that can be mobilized from one place to other place for maximize or efficiently produce good quality of product. In this regard, if you apply theory of constraint, it is little bit risky, but the thing is that you have to achieve your organizational goals. That is the concept behind theory of constraint. The next part is that, as I told, in case of the origin of theory of constraint, it is, as I told, in case of this theory of constraint as management philosophy was introduced in the year 1984 and published in the form of a novel that is known as Goal by Eliyahu M. Goldratt, and he's a Israeli management expert, and his focus in theory on project management. And there is another book that is Critical Chains. As I told, the chain is no longer stronger, it's weakest link that comes from this particular novels that is known as Goal as well as the Critical Chains, which is published during 1997. So as far as his concept in case of theory of constraint or the synchronous manufacturing system, he made a particular concept or philosophy that is known as optimization of production technology. So that is why he directly focused on process that organizations, even if small team members, to focus and reduce the chances of constraint in the system. Then moving to the fundamentals of theory of constraint. In case of the fundamental of theory of constraint, the theory of constraint is key assumptions that organization can be managed by measuring three things, which together are referred to throughput accountings. So what do you mean by throughput accounting? So before starting the throughput accounting, you must know these particular terms, starting from the throughputs, then operational expenses, the next is investments. In case of throughput, the rate at which the system generate goal units or through sales, that means profits. I repeat, the rate at which the system generate profit, or you can say that it is money through sales, that is known as throughput. So that is why next point is that your operational expense, the money spent when generating your money, the money spent when generating goal units. So what are the operational expenses? The salary of workers, the maintenance cost, the inventories, the component cost, the transportation cost, the logistics cost. These are directly included in case of expenses. The next is investment. All the money that is invested in the system, for example, in case of your inventories, then machinery, tools, equipments, these are known as investment, or you can say that is the capital investments in case of your fundamentals of theory of constraint. So as in case of fundamental of theory of constraint, it directly refer to throughput accounting. So in case of throughput accounting, you must consider three parameters. The first one is throughput, the next is operational expenses, and the last one is investment in the form of machineries, then inventory and tools. So before starting that one, we will discuss this point. So in case of theory of constraint, before starting theory of constraint, you must understand the concept behind constraint. The constraint is anything that prevents the system from achieving more of its goals. So if you take the best example in case of any kind of industry, for example, in case of small manufacturing companies who consist of 4 to 5 number of workstations. So for example, in case of workstation number 4 facing more amount of difficulty in the form of machine setup. So due to that thing, more amount of raw material should be buffer in at the place of workstation number 3. So due to that buffer, the system will delay to produce more amount of product. So as far as concerned with this theory of constraint fundamentals, you directly go to that workstation number 4, and what is the need and what are the difficulties faced by that particular workstation. You provide adequate or can consider it as adequate support to efficient that particular machine for smooth conducting of raw material starting from workstation number 1 then workstation number 2, then workstation number 3, and again 4, then 5. In this regard, you can reduce the chances of constraint. For example, in case of automotive assembly, if you find any kind of difficulties, as far as concerned with automotive industries, there are different sections and subsections are associated. So what are the department? For example, engine assembles department is there. Then your body assemble department is there. Then the final assemble department is there. Then paint assembled or painting department is there. In this regard, if you find any kind of difficulty from painting department, as you know, this is the last stage of assembly process of automotive industries. But due to that thing, a huge amount of buffer of assembly process will be occur at that point. That is the duty of operation manager who directly fix that particular constraint and reduce the percentage of constraint to smooth flow of assembly work. The next part is that, as I told, the constraint can be divided into internal constraint or external constraint. Then we will discuss one by one. So first we go to the first one, that is known as internal constraint. So in case of internal constraint, is in the evidence when the market demand more from the system that can be delivered. So whenever the market demand is more, the system can be delivered the same, that is known as internal constraint. Suppose the market demand is 30 number of components and you can deliver around 30 number of components, that is known as internal constraint. So for this internal constraint, if it's the case, the focus the organization should on discovering that constraint and following the theory of constraint 5 focusing steps. So what are the 5 focusing steps? We will discuss in the next slide. In that case, you directly focus on the different type of internal constraint which is arise in case of your theory of constraint. The first internal constraint is your equipments. So in case of equipment, the way equipment is currently used limit the abilities of the system to produce more sellable goods. So it is the duty of operation manager, even if the production manager, they should provide adequate maintenance level, that the system or that the equipment should provide higher side of efficiency to produce more sellable goods and more services. The next part is people's. In case of people, as you know, this the labor or workforce is the blood of any kind of organizations. In case of the category of different kind of peoples in the form of you can say it is unskilled, then semi-skilled, then skilled, and highly skilled. And in that regard, if you employed less skilled people or semi-skilled people in the systems, you can say that you cannot be efficiently generate higher side of productivity. So that is why it is the duty of HR department or the operation department. They provide adequate training to that particular employees. That is why most of the company are using mental models held by the people can cause the different behavior aspect of people who directly get attached with the machines. The next is that BA constant. If you employed unskilled employees, so that directly delay the whole process. So due to his skills, a huge amount of congestion or huge amount of time will be taken to set up the machines, to run the machine, to operate the machines. So these are the constraints before you engage a huge amount of workforce in the form of people into the you consider it is directly engage a huge amount of manpower. That means you can take care about those people are highly skilled or they are technically enhanced or they are specialized in that regard, that can be reduce the chances of constraint in the form of peoples. The next is policies. So in case of policies, the policies vary from company to company. I repeat, the company policies vary depending upon it's directly depend upon managerial policies, and some are written, some are not written. So this directly prevent the system from making more amount of constraint and for achieving the common goal of organization. That is why most of the company are use standard manual procedures, and whenever you involve with this particular system, you must follow this particular standard operating procedure that describe different aspects, starting from how to run the machine, how to operate the machine, how to maximize the efficiency of machine. That should be strictly written on that standard operating manuals. And in some cases, some are in the form of written, some are unwritten policies, which is already defined by the top authority, or you can say that is that should be directly provided by the top of authority and followed by the middle level of management to the lower level of management. The next part is in case of your internal constant, as I told, the equipment, people, and policy. But in case of external constant, the external constant exists when the system can produce more than the market bear. Suppose the market demand is 20 and you can produce more amount, that is around 30 to 40 number of parts or product. In that case, the organization should focus on mechanism to create demand for its product and services. So suppose your manufacturing system is system has the ability to produce more amount of product, and this kind of constant is allowed to maximize the demand for product and services through the marketing or through the sales sales force to making more demand on that particular product. So this is the typical case in case of external constant. The next part is that, so in case of theory of constant, the next part, the theory of constant concept create mindset that the goal of a firm or organization to make more money. So as I told, the most of the company nowadays, they are focusing on making more money. So that is why most of the company is called profit-making organizations, and not to save money or reduce cost. So before making more money, that means you have to choose your quality of raw materials, then best process. The next part is best tools and equipments, and implementing best technology to produce quality of good. But the thing is that most of the company are not saving money, or you can say that is not reduce the cost. So in the next upcoming month or next upcoming year, they are facing more amount of losses. To reduce these particular losses, most of the multinational companies, those are enabled in case of manufacturing aspect, they are implementing theory of constant to identify different constant and reduce the different cost. For example, in case of operational cost, for example, maximize the throughput, and next part is your reduce the inventory levels, compress the lead time in between manufacturing activities. So these are the things which is implemented by the philosophy of theory of constant. So there are two such important conditions including case of theory of constant. The first condition is provide a satisfying work environment to employees. The next part is provide satisfaction to the markets. So why employees? As I told, the employees or worker or manpower is the blood of any kind of organizations. If you not provide adequate environment, for example, utility facilities, the next is Medicare facilities, better working environment. In that regard, initially it is good, but later on it is directly depress their mindset to reduce the amount of productivities or the percentage of productivities. Our next part is that if you go for external constant or if you go for internal constant, if you not satisfy the market, that means your product is not accept or not up to the mark of customer need. So that is why most of the company are directly focused on customer or build up more potential customers. The next part is that in the most basic statement of theory of constant is that the system are defined by single goals. So most of the system are defined by single goal, that is known as your making more money. And next part is that the output of system is limited by some constant. So what are the constants? For example, in case of storage, for example, in case of warehouse facility, for example, in case of quality check or quality control department, and for example, in case of some lacuna, in case of operational activities, in case of process or wrongly chosen technology. So due to that thing, your output of system is limited. So these are the statement which is considered in case of theory constant. To reduce or to maximize the profit through the manufacturing activity, through the sales, through the production activities. You have to take care about different aspects. As I told, in case of internal, that is equipments. The next is people, policies. The next part is that fulfill the market demand, create more demand, satisfy the customer, satisfy the employee level. That is most important part as far as concerned with the philosophy of theory of constraint. So any doubt till this slide? Anyone? Anyone? Any doubt from your side? Anyone?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. So what is the common objective of organizations? Anyone?
Profit, sir.
Only profit.
So common motive, sir, is profit.
Okay, I have two options. One is Reliance Industry, one is Tata Group. Which group you prefer?
Sir, Tata, sir.
Why Tata? Why not Reliance? Because Reliance is making more profit. So you are talking about organization objective point of view, na?
Yes, sir. Sir, you asked what is the motive of an organization. I said the perspective for an organization, sir. But now you have asked about joining which company, Reliance or Tata. So I said Tata because the work environment is better in Tata than Reliance Group.
Okay, Manasi Bera, which company you prefer? Tata or Reliance Industries?
Sir, Tata.
Madhumita?
So Tata.
Okay, there is another option for 16 Sumitra. There is TCS is there and Infosys is there. Which company you prefer?
TCS.
Why TCS?
So TCS Tata कंसल्टेंसी सर्विसेज में आता है टाटा ग्रुप में ग्रुप के अंदर.
Okay, if you go for employee satisfaction or work environment, if you compare TCS versus Infosys, most of the TCS people are getting more beneficial from that particular organizations, and due to that thing, Tata is not focusing on profit. They are focusing on sustainability of employee livelihood. So that is why most of the people are directly concerned with Tata Group. Clear? So we are talking about profit. As you compare Reliance Industry versus your Tata Group, both companies are making profit. But as far as concerned with the profit point of view, Reliance is getting more profit as compared to your Tata Group. But the thing is that yes.
Yes, sir. But sir, Tata gives 60% of its income as charity.
Yes, charity. So due to that thing, what will happen? It's directly diversified towards the charity levels. And the next part is that the job satisfaction levels and the employment or you can say that is the working environment level is very much enriched as compared to Reliance Industries. So that is why in that regard, why I'm giving this particular example, the thing is that if you implement this theory of constant philosophy in case of people's, most of the people are raise their hand in case of Tata Group because it's a generation wise plan. If your father is employed in that particular organization, then most of your sibling, even if your next generation will be employed by, they will offer some employment in case of in this particular group. Then moving to the next slide. The next is under this theory of constraint, the objective is to maximize throughput. So as I told, the maximize the throughput means maximize money through sales and minimize the operating expense for labor, sales, administrations, and simultaneously minimize the investment or you can say that is capital which outlay for inventory, plant, and equipments. So this is the main objective. The first objective is to maximize throughput, minimize operating expenses, and the last one is simultaneously or reduce the investment in the form of inventory, plant, and equipments. Then moving to the next ones. So in case of theory of constraint, most of the organizations, the goal is to make money not well edged in case of futures. So why I'm giving this particular example in case of Tata Group and your Aditya Birla Group, even if Bata Industries, these are the group who are directly focusing on futures in the form of sustainabilities. So that is why the theory of constant adopts the common idealism, that is, a chain is no longer stronger its weakest link, as a new management paradigm. So this means that process and organizations are vulnerable because weakest person and weakest part can always damage or break. So that is why whenever you implement the theory of constant philosophies, for example, in case of peoples, for example, in case of equipment, in that regard, you have to eliminate these weakest links, or in some cases, you just fix the weakest link to make the chain stronger. And if you make the chain stronger, you can maximize your throughput in the form of making money. That is the concept behind theory of constant. Then moving to the next one. So you know the theory of constant is directly focused on process. So before starting those things, you directly concern on the different processes. So here we have 5 number of processes in case of theory of constant for ongoing improvement or continuous improvement. So first you have to identify the constant, then exploit the constant, then subordinate the constant, then elevate the constant, and repeat for other constant if any. So this whole process, starting from identify, then exploit, then subordinate, then elevate, and repeat for other constant, if you find any kind of constant. So due to that, 5-stage process, which directly lead towards your ongoing improvement in the manufacturing activities or your production activities. So we'll discuss one by one. So in case of theory of constant process, in case of identify the constant, in order to manage a constant, it is first necessary to identify the system constant that are just one that really limit the system progress towards goals. So for example, in a machining workshop, it contains 5 number of machines. So in case of 5 number of machines, for example, the machine number 2 face huge amount of setup time difficulties due to employment of unskilled labor or unskilled worker. So due to that thing you have to eliminate the you can say the worker, or you can mobilize that particular worker from that place to other place. And in this regard, you have to by engaging another or assigning another highly skilled employees, you can restrict the prevention in the form of constraint. So before identify a particular constraint, whenever you get involved in a system, you must understand the different aspect of the particular organizational systems. The next part is exploit. After identification of constraint, it is decide how to manage this particular constraint within the systems. So whether it should be internal constraint, whether it should be external constraint, that should be decided by the middle level of management. And the information should be flow from a reverse wave, starting from the lower level to middle, and middle level to top level of management. So they are managed in a such a way that they just provide what is needed to match that particular output. So if you find any kind of any parts and parts is facing more difficulties, you just remove and replace that particular part to smooth running of that particular machines. So in this regard, you have to match the output and not allow to supply more output that is needed because it's achieved not its particular goal. The next part is that it is always desirable to focus how to get more production within the existing capacities. So most of the company are not go for expansion. Whenever they receive any kind of demand, and that demand should be transferred in the form of raw material, then raw material to finishing product. In this regard, if you find any kind of difficulties in the form of constant, that constant should be within the organizations, within the systems, and most of the you can say that is vulnerable activities in the form of constant that should be fixed within the limited capacity of their man, machine, and materials. The next part is that is subordinate. So everything else is subordinate to above decision in case of step number 2. The first step is your identify, the next step number 2 is exploit, then third step is subordinate. So everything is subordinate to above decision in case of your exploit state. Since the constraint is keep away from the moving towards the goal, all resources that can assist in breaking that particular applier. So if that particular machine is face more amount of difficulties, the whole team of your operational activities, they directly focus on that particular machine. They provide all resources, they provide all resource allocations, they provide all technology to breaking that particular constraint in this particular subordinate state. And practically in all cases, their limiting impact can be reduced and eliminated. In most cases, most of the parts, components, even if peoples, in case of peoples, those are directly reduced or that can be eliminated. So that is why most of the company are using, they just eliminate the part of manpower and engage a huge amount of automated robots to reduce the percentage of your constraint. It is necessary to prevent the material needed next from waiting in a queue at a non-constant resources. So as I told, in case of resources, it is necessary to prevent material needed in case of inventory, in case of parts, or in case of components, sub-components, and for waiting in a queue at a non-constant level. So in case of non-constant level, whenever you find any kind of difficulties, from that non-constant level, you bring the component parts and fix that particular constant and reduce the percentage of constant. The fourth step of your theory of process, that is elevate. So in case of elevate, the system constant are elevated. A constant will no longer be constant at some point if continuous work is done towards breaking the constant. So if that machine is enable or efficient after providing adequate maintenance work, then automatically the system will break that particular constant. And if after fully exploit this process, it still cannot produce enough product to meet the market demand. Other way to increase capacities. The last one is that is the final step of your theory of constant. That is repeat for other constant. If the constant is broken, then repeat step number 1, starting from the step number 1, that is identify, exploit, then subordinate, then again elevate. So when that happens, there will be another constant somewhere in the system. In that particular system, every system consists of a huge amount or maybe less amount of constant. Whenever you fix one constant, there may be another constant. So similarly, the operation team, you consider it the maintenance team in the form of mechanical, in the form of utilities, in the form of electrical. They are always get attached to the production area or nearby the area. If they find or identify any kind of constant in the system, especially in case of manufacturing environment, especially in case of production environment, they directly fix the problem and smooth the flow of raw material to maximize the efficiency, or you consider maximize the percentage of production. The next part is that, so before this particular theory of constant, you must know about the theory of constant thinking process. So what are the thinking process? We have 5 number of tools generally used. The first one is current reality trees, then evaporating clouds. The next one is your future reality tree, then prerequisite trees, then transition trees. So we will discuss one by one. Then in order to continually identify the constant, the theory of constant provide theoretical framework and the tool to do so. So there are 5 tools we have. I have already told that one. The first one is current reality tree. Capture the experience and institute for involved individuals. It identifies the root cause or core problem of organizations. So if you find, for example, in case of steel plant, for example, in case of any kind of metal industries, most of the process are divided into a number of categories. For example, the raw processing department is there. The next part is that you consider it best example you can take in case of Visa Steel. In that regard, what will happen? In case of Visa Steel, the raw metal processing department is there, the melting department is there, and the next part is the post-processing department is there. So in this regard, you have to capture the different experiences and institution for involved individuals. So if you involve the different experiences and institute in department and sub-department level, it identifies different kind of root causes. For example, in case of transportation of that raw metal to furnace area, if any difficulties, or you can speedy the process or maximize the productivity, you can engage more automated guide vehicles. So you have already seen in case of Vijay Steel that they have made so many type of conveyor belt to feed the raw metal inside the furnace. So due to that thing, they are just realizing, or they are directly focused on current reality trees. The next part is evaporating cloud. It identifies a solution to core problem previously identified. It helps to uncover the conflict and brought about the core problem in the first place. So suppose in case of that raw material shipment from the stockyard to your processing unit, in this regard, if you find any kind of difficulty, for example, you face a huge amount of logistic problem. In this regard, the logistic problem is take in a priority basis to solve that particular process. That should be included in case of your evaluating cloud process. The next part is that the third tool is future reality tree. It identifies what is missing from our solutions, and it allows us to evaluate and improve our solution before being implemented. So if you identify any kind of constraint, starting from your current reality tree or evaluating cloud, in that regard, if you miss any part, for example, you are missing some component and parts, in that regard, you just directly focus on that missing part, and it allows us to evaluate and improve our solution before implementing or before facing that particular problem, in the form of reduce the percentage of constraint. The next is prerequisite trees. Identify all intermediate steps that are needed to reach the chosen solutions. So what are the intermediate steps? Suppose due to difficulty faced by your machines or your equipments that needed a specially designed tools. In this regard, you have to identify all intermediate. What intermediate? You just communicate the middle level of management. Then middle level of management is informed to the higher level of management. Then higher level of management is concerned with purchase department, and purchase department is directly concerned with the finance department. After release of that particular finance, you can purchase that particular material through the store department. It should be reached up to the production department nearby. So in this regard, if you find any kind of difficulties, you just identify the different stages of intermediate steps to need and reach the chosen solution. And the last one is transition trees. So this transition tree identifies those actions given current environment to achieve the intermediate objectives we identified earlier within the prerequisite tree. As I told, so whenever you order a special equipments or tools or machines, you have to identify the different intermediate modes or intermediate steps, and the objective of those intermediates, they are identified earlier with the prerequisite tree. That means whenever you consult with purchase department, the purchase department is very much responsible for you can say there is they are communicating with more number of sellers or more number of suppliers. They in this regard, they can choose the best parts and component from that particular supplier, and that should be needed, or that action should be needed in a given current environment. This is known as your transition trees. The next part is that moving to the next one. The next one is performance measures. In case of theory of constraint, you have to directly focus on two aspects of performance measurement in the form of your financial measures, and another is operational measures. So in case of financial measures, this include net profit, cash flow, and return on investment. And these are very much co-related as far as concerned with the operational aspect. The first one is maximize throughput, then reduce the cost of inventory. The next part is reduce the cost of operating expenses. So whenever you focus or whenever you implementing theory of constraint philosophy in a existing organizations, You have to take care about financial expenses as well as your operational expenses, because these are very much interrelated. I just repeat, in case of operational expenses or operational measures, maximize the throughput, that is maximize or making more money uh, uh, through sales. The next is reduce inventory levels and reduce operational expenses. We'll discuss one by one. So in case of your financial performance measures of importance, that is, one is known as your net profit, the absolute measurement, then the return on investment, and the relative measurement based on the investment, and the last one is cash flow for a survival measurement. But in case of operational measures, that is throughput is there, inventory is there, and operational expenses are there. Then here the next concept is arise. As I know, the theory of constraint is directly concentrated on throughput accountings. So in case of throughput accounting, when the accounting in the form of theory of constraint, you will be differ from traditional accounting methods. So what are the different traditional apart from traditional accounting method? The theory of constant directly focus on financial constant, that is secondary to selling goods or selling services, or you can say it is maximize the throughput. So in case of measuring this particular throughput, the throughput accounting has four measurement. The first one is net profit, that return on investment, then productivity, and the last one is investment tons. In case of net profit, the throughput minus your operating expenses. In case of return on investment, that is net profit divided by your investment, and productivity, that is throughput divided by the operating expenses. And the last one is in case of investment tons, that is throughput divided by investment. So these are the things which is considered in case of throughput accounting, starting from the net profit, return on investment, productivity, and investment tons. So these are the formula. That is, for example, in case of net profit, throughput minus your operating expenses, then return on investment, that is net profit divided by investment, then productivity, that is throughput divided by operating expenses, and investment term, that is throughput divided by investment. So these are the terms. Then moving to the next one. So in case of performance measures regarding theory of constant, these measures are defined this way to focus decision makings, and most of the decisions are taken by the top level of management. On this decision making activity, that will be improve goal making profit, because it has the greatest impact on net profit as well as a return on investment, or throughput is elevated to the most important measures. Then next one is, then the constant that prevent the throughput from increase can be determined, and that step can be taken into increase profit. Then moving to the next slide. As I told, this performance, or you can say it is in case of operational measures, the throughput that is defined, as I told, this is defined as the quantity of money generated by the firm through the sales over a period of times. And in case of inventory, that is the quantity of money invested for in case of material that the firm intend to sales. And in case of operating expenses, that is define the quantity of money spent by the firm to convert inventory into throughputs. So for example, in case of operating expenses, that is known as your wages, then salary, then the cost of equipments. These are the few examples which is considered in case of operational expenses. Then moving to the finance. Okay, any doubt from your side, anyone? Still get any doubts? Any question from your side? So what is throughput? Anyone? Yes, anyone? Manasivera, what is throughput?
Sir, it's basically the system generate the goal unit, or we can say the money through the sales or operation activities.
Okay. 16, what is sale?
Just sale.
Sale. Rajalakshmi Swami left. What do you mean by sales? Madhumita, what is sales?
So it is a process. It is a process from selling product in the exchange of money and goods.
With the exchange of money, selling a product. That is known as sales. Okay. What is quality? Shamsundar.
Yes, sir.
What do you mean by quality?
Sir, quality, sir, it is a standard of good which can be measured like with some excellence or some different methods.
Okay. Manasivera, what is ISO? Try to understand why I am asking the fundamental question, because in the upcoming month or week, you have to face few campus. Clear. Most of the company are asking fundamental questions. So those who are applied for your budget paint in case of Axis, clear, or in case of some operational company will be come for your campus drive, they are asking fundamental questions. Yes, Manasvera, what is ISO?
Sir, it's a somewhat of a technique which is used to measure the quality of the machine, or we can say the manufacturing system.
ISO or ISO standard.
For International Organization for Standardization.
Yes, yes. Okay, you already gone through an operation 1 and operation 2. Here, the next question is, what is management? Madhumita, what is management?